Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a question that seems, well, pretty simple on the surface. What does it actually mean to help someone?
Right. Sounds straightforward.
But it's really not. We
Yeah.
want to go way beyond just the basic ideas. And it all kind of kicks off with this story I remember.
Oh.
Yeah, driving through Yellowstone. It's one of those amazing places. Anyway, this was years ago after a really, really wet winter. There'd been a microburst or something, and this huge pine tree had just fallen flat across one of the smaller roads.
Oh, wow. Blocking everything.
Completely.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 cars backed up. And there's this group of adults, really smart people. I think there was an engineer, a construction guy, a teacher, maybe all huddled around this massive tree.
Trying to figure out what to do.
Exactly. Debating intensely. They had tools out, hammers, a car jack, ropes, even blankets laid out. Like, it looked like a major operation.
Yeah.
And, pine trees, right? The tip's pretty light, but the trunk end, impossibly heavy. So these smart adults are basically stuck arguing. Then suddenly, the tree just shifts a little. Everyone stops, looks towards the tip, and there's this young kid, maybe 11 or 12 years old, just sort of easily lifting the light end.
Ah, the simple solution.
That was the light bulb moment. If one kid could lift the tip, then the whole group could pivot the thing, like a big, heavy pendulum, roll it off the road bit by bit.
And did they?
They did. Everyone worked together then with this totally new understanding.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Yeah, and that's really our guide for today. Helping isn't about muscling through it for someone else. It's more like facilitation.
Facilitation.
Yeah,
Guiding them to use their own resources.
exactly. Helping them see possibilities they couldn't see alone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't change people. We give them knowledge, tools, maybe a different perspective so they can change themselves.
Empowering self-change.
That's the mission today. We're going to dive into some key theories, practical skills, specific models even, that really underpin this art of helping, especially in groups. We want to unpack what it really takes to empower people.
Yeah, that Yellowstone story, it really captures the essence, doesn't it? This idea of facilitation, not just, doing it for them. And it's not new. Helping is ancient. Think Greek philosophers, shamans, wisdom traditions.
Right, it's been around forever.
But this sort of modern, formal approach, that really took a big leap with figures like Sigmund Freud.
Freud, the father of psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
He didn't start there, though, did he? He was more into pure science.
Exactly. Nervous system research. But anti-Semitism was a major barrier back then, so he couldn't get the academic posts he wanted. He had to shift into medicine.
Okay.
And working with Dr. Joseph Breuer, they encountered patients with hysteria. That's an outdated term now, obviously, but they noticed something revolutionary.
Which was?
Just talking about their problems seemed to make the symptoms better.
The talking cure.
Precisely. That was the birth of psychoanalysis, really. This idea that talking it out could actually heal.
And that led to his whole model of the mind, right? The iceberg thing.
Yeah, the famous iceberg. His idea was that most of what drives us, 90% is unconscious, below the surface.
Okay, break that down a bit.
So you've got the ED. Think of it as pure instinct, the pleasure principle. Like a toddler demanding immediate gratification, I want it now, dough. Sex, aggression, basic drives.
No filter.
None. Then there's the superego. That's your internalized rule book. Morality, social norms, the shoulds and shouldn'ts. You've learned from parents, society. It's often quite harsh.
The internal critic.
You could say that. And then mediating between them is the ego. It operates on the reality principle. It tries to balance the id's desires with the superego's rules and the constraints of the real world.
So the ego's the one doing the hard work, trying to keep the peace.
In essence, yes. It's navigating reality. And to help it cope, Freud's daughter, Anna Freud, really fleshed out the idea of defense mechanisms.
Right, the ways we protect ourselves unconsciously.
Exactly. Strategies the ego uses to shield us from anxiety or distress, like denial, just refusing to accept something painful. You see that a lot with addiction, someone insisting they don't have a problem.
Or displacement, like you have a bad day at work and yell at your partner.
Perfect example, taking it out on a safer target. There's also repression, projection, lots of them.
And knowing about these helps help her how?
Well, if you see these patterns consistently in someone, maybe they're always in denial or constantly displacing anger, it's a clue. It suggests there might be deeper, unconscious stuff going on that they're struggling to face directly.
So it signals a need to maybe adjust the approach.
Absolutely. You realize their immediate behavior might be a defense, not necessarily the core issue. It helps you understand where they're coming from, even if it seems irrational on the surface.
Okay, that makes sense. But, focusing so much on the unconscious, on deficits,
Yeah.
could that be limiting?
That's a really important point, and that's exactly where humanistic theory, or the person-centered approach, brought a massive shift.
Moving away from Freud's model.
In a way, yes. It didn't necessarily discard everything, but it shifted the emphasis. Humanistic thought focuses on the individual's potential for growth, their inherent capacity to heal and find their own answers.
So less focus on what's wrong and more on strengths.
Precisely. The core belief is that people have the resources within themselves. The helper's role isn't to fix them or give answers, but to create the right conditions, a safe, trusting environment where the person can tap into their own inner wisdom. It's pure facilitation, like you said, with the tree.
And it sounds like just being heard is a huge part of that.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. There's fascinating research on why people sometimes drop out of therapy after just 1 or 2 sessions.
Why is that?
Often, it's because their distress significantly reduces simply from the experience of being truly listened to, maybe for the first time ever, without judgment.
Wow. Just being heard can be that healing.
It can be profound. It really highlights the fundamental power of the therapeutic relationship itself, that connection, that acceptance.
And within humanistic theory, you've got Maslow, right? The hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely. Most people know the pyramid. Basic physiological needs, food, water, shelter at the bottom.
Then safety, love and belonging, esteem.
And finally, self-actualization at the top, becoming your fullest self.
How does that apply in like a group therapy setting?
It's a really practical guide. Before you dive into deep emotional work, you need to assess, are these basic needs met? Does the person feel safe? Do they have stable housing?
So you start with the foundations.
Exactly, because trying to work on, say, self-esteem issues is really hard if someone's immediate reality is chaos or danger. Maslow reminds us to prioritize, to build that secure base first. It's fundamental facilitation.
In Carl Rogers, another big name in humanistic psychology, he talked about the ideal self versus the real self.
Yes, a crucial distinction. The ideal self is who we think we should be, maybe influenced by society, family, that perfect version.
Like our Instagram profile.
Kind of, yeah. And the real self is who we actually are, flaws and all. Rogers said self-actualization isn't about becoming perfect, like the ideal self. It's about closing the gap between the two.
How?
Through self-acceptance. Really embracing your real self, the whole picture.
And why is that gap so important?
Because a big gap between who you think you should be and who you feel you are causes a lot of distress, anxiety, depression, low self-worth. It often stems from that incongruence.
So helping someone accept their real self is key.
Absolutely. And interestingly, when you can fully accept yourself, it makes it much easier to accept others without judgment, which is vital in fields like criminal justice or addiction, where judgment can be a huge barrier to connection and change.
Okay, so we've got these individual theories. How does this translate when we bring people together into a group setting? This leads us to the general helping model.
Right. It's often broken down into 3 core stages. First, exploration.
Just listening.
Deeply listening. Without judgment. Really trying to understand the person's world from their perspective.
Okay, step 1, understand. Step 2.
Insight. Helping the client see patterns, make connections, gain clarity about why they feel or behave the way they do.
The aha moments.
Kind of, yeah. And once that insight is there, the 3rd step is action. Collaboratively figuring out what changes they want to make and how to implement them.
And that client-centered part is key throughout.
Absolutely critical, especially when you're working with trauma survivors or maybe people who are court-ordered to be there. Their perception of the problem, how they see it internally, that's your starting point.
Even if it doesn't seem objectively true.
Initially, yes. You build the alliance first. You validate their experience. Confronting inconsistencies comes later, if needed, once trust is established. You don't want to just shut them down immediately.
That makes sense. And you mentioned avoiding the social voyeur trap.
Yes. It's easy for helpers, maybe out of curiosity, to ask for details that aren't therapeutically relevant, like graphic details of trauma or a crime.
Which could be harmful.
Exactly. It can re-traumatize or just derail the focus. The key is to stay focused on the here and now. What are the present symptoms? How are they feeling now? What's their current reality? If you find yourself wanting details, ask yourself, is this truly helpful for them right now?
Good check. This all ties into the psychological contract, doesn't it? That sort of unwritten agreement.
It does. It's built on several core principles. Both helper and client need to be truly present, engaged. The client is usually in a state of incongruence, that gap we talked about.
And the helper needs to be genuine.
Crucial, congruent, authentic, using self-disclosure thoughtfully, not just dumping your own stuff, and showing unconditional positive regard.
Meaning complete acceptance?
Acceptance of the person, yes. Even if you don't agree with their choices or behaviors, you accept their inherent worth. And then there's empathy.
Feeling with the client, not just sorry for them.
Exactly. Understanding their world from the inside. But there's a caution here. Too much empathy without boundaries can lead to burnout or feeling overwhelmed.
So balance is key.
Always. And finally, the client needs to perceive the helper's genuineness, acceptance, and empathy for the relationship to work.
You hear about therapists getting into a flow state sometimes.
Yes, master therapists can become so attuned, so immersed, they lose track of time. It's a sign of deep connection. But even then, boundaries remain, the session still ends.
And a core skill for all this is just listening properly, which is harder than it sounds.
So true. We often listen just waiting for our turn to talk, listening to respond.
Instead of to understand.
Exactly. Active listening involves things like using appropriate eye contact, keeping cultural sensitivity in mind, of course. Simple nods show you're tracking. An open stance, physically.
And checking understanding.
Definitely. Paraphrasing back, so what I'm hearing you say is that right? It confirms you're getting it and gives them a chance to correct you. It also means being aware of your own biases and consciously setting them aside.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Let's talk about silence.
Ah, yes. Often uncomfortable in Western culture.
Right. We feel like we have to fill the space. But it's different elsewhere.
In many East Asian cultures, for instance, silence can mean respect, deep thought, wisdom. It's not necessarily awkward. And in therapy, it's definitely not just dead air. It's an active tool.
How so?
Well, it gives the client space. Space to think without interruption, to feel their feelings, to make connections between, say, a feeling and a past experience or a current behavior. Insights often bubble up in those quiet moments.
For both client and helper.
Yes. It gives the helper time to observe nonverbal cues, to process what's been said, to really think about the best way forward.
You mentioned something fascinating about wait time in conversations.
Yeah, the research is quite stark. In normal conversation, the gap before someone responds is often only about 5 seconds, maybe less.
Feels quick.
It is. But actually processing information, thinking about it, and then formulating a thoughtful response takes longer. Maybe 4 or 5 seconds just to think, another 7, 10 to really put it into words.
So the recommended therapeutic wait time is?
Often around 20 seconds after asking a question or after the client finishes speaking.
20 seconds? That sounds incredibly long.
It can feel like it, but it allows for much deeper processing. The initial quick responses are often superficial, maybe socially expected answers. That silence allows the client to go deeper, to access more authentic feelings or thoughts.
I can see how that would be vital in something like addiction counseling.
Absolutely. Someone might initially minimize their use, but given that space, that trust built partly through silence, more honest disclosures often emerge. Plus, while they're thinking, you're observing. Body language tells you so much. Are they avoiding eye contact, fidgeting, relaxing?
Right. Okay, so we have the theories, the individual skills like listening and silence. Now let's really put it together in groups in action. What defines a therapeutic group?
Generally, it's 2 or more people in ongoing personal contact. For therapy, the sweet spot is usually around 6 to 9 members. Enough for diverse perspectives, but not so many that people get lost.
And the power of the group itself.
It's huge. It combats isolation. I'm not the only one feeling this way. It provides shared experiences, mutual support, a sense of belonging. That connection can be incredibly healing.
But you mentioned a caution. Enabling groups.
Yes, particularly in addiction. Sometimes, unfortunately, a group dynamic can emerge where members almost romanticize past substance use or inadvertently trigger each other, making relapse more likely. Good facilitation prevents that.
And what about social loafing? People slacking off in a group.
Yeah, it's a known phenomenon, especially if attendance is mandatory, like court-ordered groups. People might feel less individual responsibility and put in less effort.
How do you counter that?
Make individual contributions more visible. Really value each person's input. Keep the group size manageable so people don't feel anonymous. Show them their voice matters.
Groups usually follow stages, right? Tuckman's model.
That's a common one, yeah. Forming, introductions, getting oriented, setting rules. Anxiety is usually high. Then storming, Conflicts emerge, people jostle for roles, maybe challenge the leader or each other.
Sounds messy.
It can be, but it's necessary. Then comes norming. The group starts to cohere, develops its own rules and ways of working, members start regulating themselves more. After that, performing. This is where the real therapeutic work happens. Lots of mutual support, focus on goals, and finally, adjourning. Preparing for the group to end, processing feelings about it, celebrating progress.
Interesting. And does group cohesion always help?
Generally, yes. Cohesion, that sense of loyalty and belonging, predicts better participation and outcomes, but there's a risk if it becomes too strong.
Which is?
Groupthink, where the pressure to conform is so high that people suppress dissenting opinions. They prioritize harmony over critical thinking. Think of Ash's conformity experiments.
Right, where people gave obviously wrong answers just to fit in.
Exactly. So a facilitator needs to actively encourage different viewpoints, validate disagreement, make it safe to challenge the group consensus. Otherwise, it stops being truly therapeutic.
Which requires good facilitation skills. What are the core principles there?
It's about drawing out ideas, not imposing them. Focusing on how and what practical steps present experience rather than getting stuck endlessly on why, and maintaining neutrality.
Even if someone shares something really extreme.
You remain non-judgmental about the person and their experience. You might challenge the thinking or the behavior, but not condemn the person. Your role is to facilitate understanding and change, not to judge.
And emotional intelligence, EQ, must be huge for the facilitator.
Absolutely critical. Self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship management. If a facilitator gets triggered and reacts emotionally, it can instantly destroy the group's sense of safety. You have to manage your own stuff.
Let's touch on some specific microskills facilitators use, like focusing.
Yeah, when someone comes in overwhelmed, maybe listing 10 problems, focusing helps them narrow it down. Okay, of all those things, what feels most important to tackle today? Or let's pick the top 3.
And clarifying.
That's about gently interrupting when someone's story is maybe confused or rambling, perhaps due to trauma or substance effects. You ask open-ended questions to help them make sense of it, but always for their benefit, not just because you're confused.
Okay. What about immediacy? Sounds like mindfulness.
It's very related. It's about bringing someone back to the present moment if they get triggered, maybe start crying uncontrollably, dissociating, getting overwhelmed by anxiety, using grounding techniques.
Life.
Focusing on breath, counting objects in the room, feeling feet on the floor, simple things to anchor them in the here and now.
And conflict resolution. That must come up a lot.
It does. The facilitator models how to handle disagreement respectfully. Maybe separating people briefly, summarizing each person's point neutrally, brainstorming solutions together, and knowing when the conflict is beyond the group's scope and needs outside intervention.
One more key skill, assertiveness.
Yes. Crucial for everyone, facilitator and members alike. It's that sweet spot between being aggressive and being passive.
Expressing yourself clearly and respectfully.
Exactly. Saying what you think, feel, need, directly, honestly, but without attacking the other person. It's closely linked to self-confidence, too. They often build on each other.
Is there a technique for that?
A common one is the 3-step technique. First, state the facts objectively. I noticed that during the discussion, you spoke over me a couple of times.
Just the facts.
Right. Second, express your feelings or thoughts. When that happened, I felt unheard and a bit frustrated. Use I statements.
Okay. Third step?
Describe the desired outcome or make a request. In the future, I'd appreciate it if you could let me finish my point before jumping in. It's clear, direct, respectful. Facilitators need to model this and often teach it explicitly.
That makes sense. Okay, let's apply all this. Let's talk targeted group treatment, maybe for things like PTSD or borderline personality disorder, BPD. Why are groups good for these?
Well, PTSD and BPD, while they have biological components, often stem significantly from difficult life experiences, trauma, abuse, neglect, invalidation. The interpersonal aspect is huge.
So the group setting itself becomes therapeutic.
Very much so. Sharing experiences, learning from others who get it, practicing relationship skills in a safe container, it directly addresses core aspects of these disorders.
Briefly, what are we looking at with PTSD symptoms in a group?
You might see intrusion symptoms like flashbacks triggered, intense avoidance of certain topics or emotions, negative mood or beliefs about oneself, hyperarousal like jumpiness or irritability, maybe even dissociation, feeling detached.
And it's important to remember vicarious traumatization here too, right? For the helpers.
Absolutely. Hearing traumatic stories regularly takes a toll. First responders, counselors. Self-care isn't a luxury. It's essential to avoid burnout or being traumatized yourself.
And BPD, what are the key features we might see?
Often intense fears of abandonment, very unstable relationships, idealizing then devaluing, shaky sense of self, impulsivity, maybe substance use, risky behaviors, self-harm. Also, big emotional swings, chronic emptiness, intense anger, sometimes paranoia or dissociation under stress.
And again, crucial to see these as coping mechanisms, not manipulation.
Essential. These are deeply ingrained patterns developed, often in childhood, to survive incredibly difficult environments. Understanding that changes everything.
So is there a specific group model for these kinds of issues?
One very effective one, especially for co-occurring PTSD and substance use, is called seeking safety.
Seeking safety, what's the approach?
It's an evidence-based model, meaning research supports its effectiveness. It's primarily psychoeducational and skills-based, grounded in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. It directly addresses both PTSD and substance use disorder, SUD, at the same time.
Which is important because they so often go together.
Exactly. Historically, people used to treat one, then the other. Seeking safety recognizes they're intertwined. People often use substances to cope with trauma symptoms. The model covers about 25 different topic areas, all focused on building safety and coping skills.
Things like managing triggers, setting boundaries, self-care.
Precisely. Grounding techniques, asking for help, honesty, dealing with anger, practical life skills for managing symptoms and staying safe.
How did this model come about? You mentioned the link between PTSD and substance use.
Right. PTSD really entered public consciousness more after Vietnam, formally recognized in 1980, and it quickly became clear how many veterans and other trauma survivors were also struggling with addiction. Seeking safety was developed specifically to address this overlap.
What's unique about its approach to trauma?
This is key. Seeking safety is present-oriented. It deliberately avoids having clients do detailed processing or recounting of their traumatic memories within the group.
Really? That seems different from some trauma therapies.
It is. The philosophy is that focusing on building safety and coping skills now can help manage the trauma symptoms effectively, and may even help reshape the traumatic memories indirectly. Because memory isn't static, right? It's reconstructive. Healing in the present can change how the past feels.
So safety first.
Safety is the absolute priority. Other core principles include integrating the treatment of PTSD and SUD, helping clients reconnect with lost ideals like trust or hope, case management to address practical needs, and strong collaboration between therapist and client.
And for the therapists running these groups, managing their own reactions, countertransference must be paramount.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Countertransference is when the therapist unconsciously projects their own feelings or past experiences onto the client. It can cloud judgment, lead to boundary violations, and be really harmful. Emotional intelligence, self-awareness, supervision, they're all vital safeguards.
Okay, finally, let's briefly touch on models of addiction and relapse prevention. It's complex, right?
Very complex. No single explanation fits everyone.
Right.
We've moved past the old moral model, just seeing it as a lack of willpower, which is incredibly stigmatizing.
Towards things like the disease model.
Yes, which views addiction as a chronic brain disorder. That reduces blame, but still needs nuance. Then you have models focusing on coping skills, like CBT, or spiritual models like AA.
But the most comprehensive view now is
The biopsychosocial model. It recognizes that relapse isn't just one thing. It's an interplay of biological factors, genetics, brain changes, withdrawal, psychological factors, motivation, beliefs about substance use, coping skills, impulsivity often linked to past trauma or adverse childhood experiences, and sociocultural factors, family environment, peer pressure, cultural norms, availability.
it takes all of that into account.
Yes. And the relapse statistics really highlight why this comprehensive view and structured support is so crucial.
What are the numbers like?
They're sobering. Without ongoing support, something like 40% of people relapse within the first 3 months after treatment, and long-term, maybe only 25–30% maintain continuous abstinence after a year.
Wow. So it really underscores that it's not just about trying harder.
Not at all. It's about managing a chronic condition influenced by many factors, and facilitation through structured support is key.
Okay. What a deep dive that was. We started with that image, the Yellowstone pine tree, and the idea that helping is really about facilitation.
Guiding, not carrying.
Exactly. Then we journeyed through some foundational theories. Freud's look inside the mind, the humanistic focus on potential and self-acceptance. We explored practical skills, the steps of helping, listening, the surprising power of silence, navigating group dynamics, using assertiveness.
And then applied it all to complex issues like PTSD, BPD, addiction, looking at specific models like seeking safety.
And tying it all back to that tree, the core really does seem to be empowering people to find their own strength, their own solutions, building trust, creating safety, offering tools.
That facilitation role is constant.
So here's something to leave you with, a thought to mull over. We talked about memory being reconstructive, how our present state shapes how we recall the past. If that's true,
How?
how might our current understanding of ourselves, the story we tell ourselves now, actually shape the possibilities for our future healing and growth?
That's a powerful question to ponder. How the present reshapes the past and therefore the future.